I hope you had a pleasant lunch, also some time to discuss maybe important or not important issues. I will continue with the part of sustainability. So Katja and Tanya already started with one part of possible sustainability to maybe import some of data sets that were collected during the feedback effort to the more repository, which would have a great effect later on for researchers. And for sure, we will discuss also on this in our group. Now Katja is also the member of feedback group and can give us also some more details. And I already spoke on this also with Justin Lang, Canadian colleague, who actually will join us later on, because on one panel that we had organized by him, this was one of the topics that international scholars should have this kind of repository, which will actually be a breakthrough to study some issues, some problems that cannot be studied right now. So nevertheless, I will go to my presentation. So within feedback sustainability strategy, we plan to have bottom-up as well as top-down approach, as our project already had in previous period. So first part is to enlarge a feedback network. We are doing on this, and I will roughly estimate that now we have already 6-7 more members. Some of them are also online. I saw Marian for Poland and also a colleague from Basque County, etc. So Katja is here. So we have new friends also joining us in past few months, and we will enlarge this group in next years. And of course, the idea behind is how we can support these new members. What can we offer to them? So from top-down approach, we will try to address policymakers as one important group for establishing physical fitness monitoring systems. So we have a lot of knowledge and experience on this, and we can share. Maybe you don't know, but actually in Slovenia, we have a first attempt for physical fitness monitoring already before this SLOfit, and it was unsuccessful. So we can also share such kind of practice or experience, because it's really important not to do mistakes that we already did. So I think our partnership has a lot to offer for successful implementation of physical fitness monitoring. So from bottom-up approach, we are offering to schools, to local communities, this simple tool. And based on this simple tool, they can actually store this data and establish simple monitoring, and then upgrade later on with some more sophisticated IT tools. One of the colleagues on Zoom asked us, I think it was Lukáš from Czech Republic, what kind of funds did we have within the feedback to provide this IT solution? I have to mention that we performed this with really small amount of money. It's around 30,000 euros for this solution. But this is really simple, cheap solution. When it comes to sophisticated solutions like it's SLOfit, there's a more 100,000 euros involved, because there are a lot of issues, especially regards to identification, GDPR rules, etc., which have to be care of. and this is another dimension. So don't count that, for instance, such a solution like SLOfit will come with 10 or 50,000 euros. No, it will not. Maybe for a big country like Germany, for instance, it's not big money to invest €500,000 euros, but for Slovenia, this was really hard job to do. We actually did this with our research money. We didn't get much grant from our government, so basically we depend from our research activities. Okay, now I think that I have to mention one ground here which was established during this project. So Slovenia actually led Council of European Union in a previous half year, so the second part of 2021. And within this period, FitBack group supported adoption of conclusions of the Council on identifying physical fitness monitoring as important political issue. So now we have one political document. This political document is also on FitBack webpage. And when it comes to policy making and convincing policy makers why this is important, we have a political document. I think this is really important when addressing people on this level. So we have here recognition that physical fitness monitoring system can assess the scale of physical inactivity problem and evaluate the effectiveness of any policies. And this document also says that to invite member states to establish and promote evidence-based national, regional, or local physical fitness monitoring system, which on the one hand provides individual feedback reports, and on the other hand also provide information for policymakers. And also there is an invitation for sport movement and other stakeholders to use existing free of charge platforms. We couldn't state over there FitBack because this is general document, but of course this is referring to FitBack platform. So I think this is first legacy of this project. So when it comes to bottom-up service, we are providing free of charge reporting system with tips for fitness improvement. So this is actually the basic ground to establish simple fitness surveillance system. But besides of this, we are also providing toolkit to present FitBack platform to teachers. So how to perform workshops. We have templates with PowerPoints, as well as whole program scheduling. So we can also share these documents as well as experience with performance of these workshops to other FitBack members. And then we can also present best practice and experience. This is done on our website. So over there you have a presentation of SLOfit, Fitescola, Move, Diagnoform, etc. So all these materials are available already on the website. And what comes next is that within new project, I hope we will get it. This project will be oriented especially how we can use this platform as a tool for physical literacy improvement. We will provide this toolkit, these materials, PDFs, as well as reporting system in more languages, not just 5 languages like it is. Currently, French version is not published yet, but it's prepared. But the idea is that also reporting system will be published in 15 languages. We are also focusing on vulnerable groups, among others also Ukrainians. So this is an idea for continuation of bottom-up service. And here you can see the physical literacy toolkit, actually what is behind. So what is connection? Claude already described this between fitness monitoring and physical literacy, or reports, infographics, and also physical literacy assessment. So for the top-down service, our idea is to support countries that want to establish their own national or regional fitness surveillance system. And some countries are already interested in it. For instance, our colleagues from Finland, they will support Scotland to do this. And Iceland and Basque region also approach to us. And we have this 10 steps approach described also with cases of already established system. So we can share this good experience with other countries. And then, of course, we are offering also possibility to create new language version of the whole platform. So right now we have English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. But if some country would like to support language version for its own country, it will cost them for around 3,500 euros plus taxes to do this. And this should be done to IT company that also provided us this solution. But of course, translation of all text should be prepared by such new language partner. Also, we are we can also represent fitness monitoring movement to decision makers. For instance, we will present this FitBack platform also on HEPA national focal points next week. And we also discussed that we could share gathered data. So we are in touch with WHO that generated fitness data, which are presented in fitness map, would be integrated in their database gateway. This is database on non-communicable diseases. And of course, idea is also that we can all be guests and some events when it's necessary to convince maybe decision makers. This could happen via Zoom or in person. So all of members of this network are interested to spread their knowledge and experience. And when it comes to enlargement of our network, you can see these red dots. This is our original network, and then these yellow dots are new partners. So you can see that we are covering more than half of the European countries already, but I hope in next few years we can also enlarge this partnership. And of course, you are all invited. But the procedure is that you have to send us request. Then based on this, you are signing invitation letter of intent that you will participate in our network, and all your effort is also meant to be for free of use purposes. So we intend to keep free of charge this platform. This is one of key paradigm. And another legacy could be to support an international fitness data repository. So as I already mentioned, Lang and colleagues wrote a paper on Delphi study, what are actually challenges on future research direction of physical fitness. And they found out that the access of raw data for research purposes is really needed. So for instance, a repository like MORE from German colleagues is more than welcome. if we will all agree that this is a proper solution for such kind of data collection. And we also provided resources on the website. So we have several resources. Here is also this political document that I said, and there is a flyer. There is also feedback promo video. So you have a lot of these resources over there. And when you will develop new one, this will be also published here. So we also have some ideas for future. We discussed, we brainstormed among the partners where, in which direction we could or we should develop the feedback. And we decided that we will first go in the direction of improving physical literacy, but then we have some space also to collect and provide feedback for fitness data of preschoolers. So we have some experience already here with Fran and his group, and most of the partners are also interested to participate on this. Then, of course, in some years we can update fitness data for European fitness standards, and maybe also to establish the overview of secular trends in countries. And maybe we can also support to get feedback for other fitness tests. Now we actually limited ourselves to this narrow span of alpha fit test batteries, but maybe there could be also some other tests which could be interesting to find the feedback. So this is actually all from my side. Thanks. Now I think we have time to discuss previous session as well as this session. So now I'm opening the floor for discussion. So, tiring after eating the food. I will check Zoom. So previously we had interesting presentations from other colleagues. I have a question for colleagues from Germany. So we saw that you established interesting repository for fitness data. What about data of co-founders and all important variables that could really be necessary for researching? Can you tell us a little bit more on this?
Yes, I can try. It's working, right? Yeah, on Mori data, it's focusing on motor research data like the fitness tests, and they are mapped, as I already showed it before. But additional data like body composition or some further data like health aspects can be uploaded as well. It just didn't get mapped because we have to focus on some aspects, and our focus is on motor tests. But we know that data sets are mostly not just motor tests, so much like you said, co-aspects. So you can upload your whole data set with all aspects you had, so you don't have to split up your data set or something like that. Yeah.
Maybe another question, will you provide also the format for this different kind of data, for instance, educational level, social economical status, etc.?
At the moment, it's not possible to have this further aspects described, but there's a possibility, or to have a definition for it, but there's a possibility in the metadata. So all you all the items, further items for health or education level, as you said, you can describe in your metadata. So you have a lot of space, and if you have got time, you can describe it in detail, which further variables and items you have on your data set and how you generated this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions on more? Yeah, Javier.
Yes, I'm Javier from Spain, and on behalf of the After Healthy Kids Global Alliance. And I would like to highlight the relevance of monitoring fitness, because in the Global Matrix initiative, we have a lot of countries with incomplete grades in physical fitness. And this is due to several reasons, and mainly because there are not monitoring systems in different countries. And when they have difficulties to report, because also the benchmarks we use are quite difficult to interpret. Also I'm happy to see the FitBack initiative being developed. And but well, when monitoring system will be implemented in a country, so Tulia has presented before, there is a part where you need to provide input data, no? So I wonder if how feasible is to do it mandatory, because I don't remember who has presented that there is some countries, in Slovenia is mandatory to provide physical fitness data from the schools. So, and maybe this will be difficult in some countries to have a mandatory task for PE teachers. So how feasible do you see it, you or someone else?
Thanks, Javier, for this interesting question. Yeah, indeed. In Slovenia, we have a school regulation, so school law, that every school have to obtain this data, but there is no obligation for students to join. So it's up to them. So their parents have to write a written consent on this. And we have a 96% response in primary school, which is really, really high. The response in high school is a little bit lower, and this is challenge also for us. But of course, within 10 steps that we are actually suggesting, this is one of the area we are addressing over there. So what kind of systematical elements should we think on when we are creating this kind of system? So yes, this is one of advantages to have like this, but previously this was obligatory also for all students, but later on with rules on personal data late in 1960s, we actually switched to this, but there is a lot more on this field. So if you go through in details in 10 steps, there is a lot of such kind of elements that should be discussed to actually establish or to facilitate establishment, and then also adoption, so that this system will be alive. Yeah, Maroje.
Yeah, Maroje from Croatia. Sorry for going back to Mori data. I was just wondering whether your platform is limited to a pre-specified number of tests that assess motor competence, or is it possible to enter maybe a newly developed test and upload these data? Thanks.
At the moment, we made a decision for 22 test items. If you search for one specific, I can have a look at it. But we're open to new test items, but at the moment now we are limited for this because somehow we had to limit it. Yeah, we have to start somewhere. But yeah, if it's first we chose the most used and internationally used test items. Yeah.
Thanks. Just wait for because their audience on the Zoom, they cannot hear you.
I just have a sub question. Are the items from the AlphaFit already included in your possible tests or not?
Yeah, we had a look. Standing long jump is included, and
Shuttle run
Hand
test
grip?
probably,
shuttle run
Hand
and
grip.
hand
is it-
grip,
and hand grip.
but no body mass index.
Body mass index is integrated, but not as a motor test item as additional measurement. Yeah.
I'm just asking this because I think is this more could be the platform for European norms. So every data are systematically corrected there, and occasionally, say every 4 years, you create new reference data, European reference data for the best data you could collect.
That's one aim. Yeah.
Yeah.
To have this. Yeah.
Okay. You think it's
Yeah, if we have
possible?
enough data. So I
Yeah.
call to all researchers. If we have enough data, this would be possible to have norms. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so this is one of possible solutions for our next work, to have some kind of continuum of data collection. If you would actually appoint all European researchers on physical fitness testing, but we have to discuss on this. Maybe this will also be the topic later on in the roundtable. I have one more. It's not a question, but it's a remark actually. So Attilio presented piloting, and I have to mention that within this our next project that I'm really hope that will come true. We also are planning to have a more wide implementation of this feedback platform among countries. So we will include more teachers, but we will include them so that they will actually provide a proper testing environment. We already discussed on this. So the idea is that within this next project, we will actually present teachers what is proper testing environment and how actually address students when it comes to testing, and not testing, but actually following their physical and motor development through physical fitness testing. So this is another dimension of this future project. Okay. Chat. Okay, so we have a question or comment from Justin Lang. So he's asking us, can we describe some of the challenges we are faced for storing and saving the data collected through feedback? How can you overcome these barriers in the future? I have to mention that we didn't actually collect it and stored the data through feedback platform. Feedback platform is not storing the data. So we collected data manually from all the researchers. And then based on this, we analyzed this data and integrated feedback. So all the norms within feedback platform. So as I mentioned, feedback is a really simple IT solution, not having a storage of data. We are not dealing with GDPR rules. This is everything is on fly. Yes, you can store this data on your personal computer, you can download it, but nothing is stored on the feedback platform. Okay, is there any more question? If not, then let's go to our next session. I kindly invite my colleague Shonda Morrison and also speakers on this roundtable. So I will now leave Shonda to introduce these speakers. Shonda, please. And I will support her for chatting on Zoom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this interesting roundtable discussion. We've created a roadmap for discussion this afternoon with 5 key points. And so these special topics I will introduce with 1 or 2 sentences and then guide the first speaker or 2 into the conversation. As the conversation develops, I'll call on some of our panelists first if they want to contribute or rebut any statements, and then we'll open it up to the floor and to the online participants. So it's my great pleasure. I'll introduce the new members and they can find their seat up here on the panel. Choose your seat wisely, it looks like. The first is our online guest from WHO, Dr. Stephen Whiting. He's the technical officer of WHO Europe for non-communicable diseases. And he did his undergraduate and master's work in public health at University of Wollongong in Australia. He's been working for the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, and he first joined WHO as an intern in 2013 before becoming full member in 2017. Stephen, take your position, please. Okay. Our second virtual member is Dr. Justin Lang from Public Health Agency Canada. He's an epidemiologist in the Applied Research Division. His focus has been on the use of physical fitness as a population health indicator for children, youth, and adults. Justin. Okay, drum roll. We have our first in-person guest. This is Dr. Gregor Starts. He's speaking to us today as a project manager of SLOfit. He's been advisor to the WHO in the Child Obesity Surveillance Initiative Group and temporary advisor for the Heat and Walking Group, which produced a tool for the economic assessment of walking and cycling. He's chosen to stand. We have Dr. KLEMM, who we've met and spoken to earlier today. She is involved with the Institute of Sport and Sports Science in Germany, and we've had a few discussions very productive with her today already. And then we have another colleague who's coming, Dr. Ortega. Oh, you're sneaky. Full professor, University of Granada. He specializes in the effects of exercise and physical and mental health outcomes. And he's especially interested in the role of cognition and brain function. So we're going to go really hard on our guests today and ask them lots of very difficult questions. And I hope we can come together and have a positive outcome. So my first question to the group, we are talking a lot about physical fitness today. And we've been having this conversation specifically about fitness, whereas in the past, WHO and other international bodies have put an emphasis on physical activity. So my question, and perhaps we can go to Stephen first, is what is the importance of maintaining physical fitness and not just being physically active, but how physical fitness is really the after effect of maintaining a physically active lifestyle? So can you speak perhaps to the difference between physical activity, physical fitness, and the relative importance of both?
Thanks, Shonda. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming in.
Thanks. Yeah, first of all, congrats to everyone involved in the FitBack project, and also the colleagues here have been researching a lot on the difference between physical activity, physical fitness, and the impact of physical fitness for cardiovascular disease and health outcomes. I'll leave it to them to speak a bit more about the detail of the difference. But from the perspective of WHO, our focus is on changing behaviors of people and populations to achieve better outcomes for public health. So we're aiming to influence behavioral risk factors like tobacco use, alcohol consumption, salt intake, physical inactivity, and sedentary behavior, as we know that improving these behaviors or addressing these behaviors can reduce morbidity and mortality at the population level, especially from NCDs and especially from cardiovascular diseases. So it's a key priority for us to increase physical activity. And then now that the evidence is showing that after effects of physical fitness for individuals and populations, the really good evidence that has been produced linking physical fitness and health status. But to improve physical fitness, we have to promote physical activity, exercise, sports participation as behaviors. So this requires, increasing awareness, but also changes to environments, opportunities for physical activity and lifestyles. So the monitoring of the physical fitness levels could be an important innovation, as we know that there are many limitations with the current systems of monitoring and surveilling physical activity levels. So thanks again for the introduction to talk, and I think I'll pass over to one of the other colleagues, or back to you, Shonda. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you for the sort of global overview of the project and the problem we're trying to tackle. I think I'll call on Dr. Lang from Canada. And I know that Dr. Lang has spent a lot of time working with cardiorespiratory and musculoskeletal strength and fitness. And so I was just wondering if these fitness components, these different types of fitness components comprise of important health outcomes at the end of the day, and how important is it to monitor fitness in a variety of ways?
Yes, thank you, Shonda. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So first I would like to thank Gregor and the FitBack Planning Committee for inviting me for this roundtable. So to answer your question, I've been researching or exploring physical fitness and trying to see if it's an important health surveillance indicator for individuals of all ages. And I've been doing this for almost the past 10 years. And there's several reasons why I'm interested in physical fitness for surveillance. One, as we will discuss in a little bit, physical fitness is strongly related to physiological and psychological health. Two, it provides an easy and cost-effective objective measure of health. So this is opposed to more subjective measures or self-report measures. And three, it could help complement existing surveillance efforts in physical activity and body mass index. I believe that the monitoring of surveillance of fitness in youth is especially important because youth are generally healthy. So it's difficult to identify groups of kids at potential risk of future chronic disease. But fitness is a sensitive measure, meaning that it's amenable to change. And in combination with physical activity and body mass index, it provides an opportunity to better triangulate and identify groups of populations of youth that are at potential risk of future chronic disease. So sticking with the youth literature, we've identified moderate international declines in cardiorespiratory fitness among boys and girls since 1981. We found declines in sit-up performance since 2010 and declines in standing broad jumps since 2000. We've identified opposite trends in grip strength. So there's actually been moderate improvements since the 1970s, and this is on the international stage. But combined, overall, I think this tells us that several countries worldwide have declining levels of population health among their youth. So I believe it's time to take action right now. So where I work at the Public Health Agency of Canada, we're a federal agency responsible for reporting on health surveillance indicators in Canada. We currently do not report on physical fitness, but over the past 4 years, we've been taking steps to make this a possibility in the future. We've been developing evidence to help interpret fitness scores, including exploring new ways to report on these indicators. We have also been guiding agency-funded public health interventions to use measures of fitness to help evaluate the effectiveness of their program. I believe we have a long way to go to fully incorporate fitness monitoring and surveillance in Canada, but we are certainly making progress. We are excited about the FitBack project and the promise it holds for international fitness monitoring, and we hope that someday it will spread to countries outside of Europe.
Thank you very much. There was a lot to unpack there. So I'm gonna throw the floor over to Dr. Starks, and I hope that he can pick up on some of these themes that you mentioned about the importance of having fitness as an indicator that you can survey over time, and how the sensitivity is enough that you can spot changes as there are barriers or changes that are occurring in society. So Dr. Starks, are you able to perhaps talk about the importance of the overall fitness index in SLOfit, what it is and how it can help us with creating change?
Yes, so well, there are certain problems with monitoring physical activity because it's a behavior. And of course, you know, we have many gadgets, and every gadget we put on gives a bit different results. So it's very hard. I mean, even in today, when all the technology is quite developed, it's still not good enough to be like a very reliable indicator. But physical fitness, on the other hand, it can be a very reliable indicator, and it does indicate the habitual physical activity of people. And in SLOfit, of course, our system is quite developed and it has been running for a long time, and we are able to track a single child for 13 years. So having this kind of fitness data for a child, it doesn't really matter if you have norms or anything else, but you know, you can see the trajectory of development of a single child, and you can see whether physical fitness is declining, increasing, improving or not. And we think that physical fitness is one of the best indicators also for physical activity. And of course, it can also easier be linked to health outcomes in comparison to physical activity, because physical activity is a behavior, and sometimes it's very subjective. That's what the problem is, for example, with questionnaires that we distribute to Slovenian children. You know, when you have a question, how many times this week have you been, I don't know, vigorously active? This means that you were tired afterwards, you were perspiring, etc. And our children, because they are very fit, many of them don't think that vigorous physical activity is vigorous at all. So they say, I don't know, 5 minutes, when in fact they've been vigorously physically active for an hour, for example. So this then brings out different results that are very sometimes in contradiction with the results of physical fitness. So you can see a child who is very fit and says, oh, I'm not active at all, you know, because he doesn't feel tired after what he's doing because he's so fit. So that's what the real problem is with physical fitness and physical activity these days, and of understanding of people understanding what it is. It's a subjective feeling how tired you are, for example. Okay. So I can see Francesco already chipping in. So yes, please, Francesco.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one point on the assessment of physical activity. Not only the subjective self-report are challenging, but when I started to work with accelerometers, was 15 years ago in the Karolinska Institute, I had the hope that, oh, they will solve all our problems, because now we have an objective machine that measure all across different culture, countries, people, different everything, ages, and it measures acceleration. So it's objective thing and it's uniform. But the surprise is actually that when you try to convert that acceleration signal into something meaningful for the society, then you run into problems, a lot of problems. So at the moment, we did that not too long ago, a couple of years ago, published a paper with the same population, a group of children, using different way of processing the accelerometer data, different decision making you make in the process, different cut points you make in the process can use, and basically end up that the percentage of people meeting the guidelines in our sample was from 5% to 95%, depending what kind of treatment we did on accelerometer data. So my point I wanted to add what Gregor was saying is actually that not only was self-report subjective data, but even with objective data, extremely challenging to measure. And when it comes to the gadget that he was saying, actually, there is about 10-20% variation between just devices. And that means 2,000 steps per day on a 10 day.
10 to 20%.
20% on a 10, let's say 10,000 steps per day, 20% is 2,000 steps. So again, it's a huge variation. So, and some people say, yeah, but fitness is actually is influenced by genetics and it cannot be considered equal. I agree. But the genetics of a population, it doesn't change from year to year. The genetics change in a very long term. And when we see this SLOfit data of the decline due to COVID dramatically from 1 year or 2 years of pandemic, that cannot be a change at population level of genetics. That is a change in behavior. So I do agree that we have an opportunity to have, as Justin was saying, non-invasive and cost-effective objective measurement of health status that can complement the surveillance that is done with BMI, but also an indicator of how behaviors are changing for the reason that we were saying.
Let's go to our final panelist to see if she has any final thoughts on this last topic on the intro to physical fitness and the importance of measuring that across a population.
I think a lot of is said now, so but I just can say yes to everything what is said until now. So we experienced the same as you said in one of our projects. Tanya said before. So we have also questionnaires and accelerometers. So they measured very different things. So it's very important, and maybe I want to highlight the international standard of monitoring and measuring fitness objectively or with questionnaires. Doesn't depend. It's very important that they do the same measurements.
Okay, good point for making sure everything is standardized. I'll go to Gregor if we have anything online that I need to. No. So we move ahead with topic number 2. I wanted to ask the panelists about the importance of translational health benefits of physical fitness. So we've now discussed what is physical fitness, why is it important to measure, but what does being fit really do to the body in terms of disease prevention? So I'd like to open the floor with Dr. Ortega and describe perhaps the importance of physical fitness, or build on your earlier topic for perhaps people who missed it in the morning, on the effects of fitness on other aspects of the human body that perhaps you're not readily thinking of, like muscles. Let's go beyond the muscles.
Thank you. Yes, actually, I presented in the morning some data where we were comparing the fitness as a marker of health, and to make sense of how powerful this is as a predictor, as a marker. It's important, for instance, to compare with classical risk factors. So if we look, for instance, on obesity or hypertension, everybody knows this is a risk factor. It needs to be measured, it needs to be monitored. So but we put the figures of how having a low fitness level, a low cardiorespiratory fitness was even related with a lower risk reduction for coronary heart diseases than obesity, even actually than morbid obesity, even actually severe morbid obesity in the figures we have in the paper. So actually, yeah, we were not aware until a few years ago in youth more years ago from Stephen Blair's studies in adults, that actually low fitness is as unhealthy condition as it is being obese or being hypertensive. So this is when it comes to physical health, but also we were surprised to see the strong link with psychiatric diagnosis in the future. In the large cohort of Swedish data, with 1 million people I mentioned, we saw a strong association with future psychiatric diagnosis of any type, and also with the risk of suicide mortality. And that goes already to more the brain part, is mental health. But what we have been investigating in the last 10 years has been how fitness was linked also to cognitive and brain health. And there we look actually at many different dimensions of brain health. So we had indicator of EEG, electroencephalography, and how the neuroelectric activity of children for a certain task, it was actually more activated and more efficient in children who were fit versus unfit. We look also at MRI structural and functional outcomes, finding consistent and strong associations. For instance, one of the paper we were analyzing in Australia with some colleagues from neuroscience, and they were surprised that BMI was not predictor of any significant region in the brain with more gray matter volume, while cardiorespiratory fitness was significantly related with the 11 regions independently of BMI. So when I tried to put some time on comparisons with the known risk factors, just to understand how indicator of the physiology and the brain physiology actually can be fitness. And I mentioned also, not in my talk, but just in the press event, that we do have also data on improvement in fitness, because so far we are using fitness as a marker. But if we improve fitness, if we do exercise-induced changes in fitness, that this improve brain outcomes or cognitive outcomes. So we had the randomized control trial, Active Brains, where the paper is actually in a repository already in medRxiv, so it can be seen, the results, and it's not yet published. But in that study, we saw that actually an exercise intervention in overweight obese children, it did improve intelligence, particular crystallized intelligence. It did improve cognitive flexibility. It did improve academic achievement, total academic achievement, mathematics, and problem solving. And some of these associations were actually mediated by improvements in fitness. So yes, fitness is a marker of how healthy and cognitively healthy the children are, but actually it's also a modifier factor that we can change by exercise, and it will translate in better cognitive and academic health.
That's a really comprehensive answer. Thank you very much. We're moving from the abstract right down into both the structural and functional changes we can see at the level of the brain. So this is really fascinating work. Thank you. My roadmap says to hand it over to Dr. Lang. I'd like you to follow up on that topic a little bit. We're okay for time, but we do have a few other topics, and I'd like to make sure we have discussion with the audience as well. So if you can talk perhaps a little bit more about the dose response relationship. Dr. Ortega talked about more of the global and the scientific underpinnings for these changes, but can you describe perhaps what magnitude or dose response changes do you need to see in order in fitness outcomes in order for that to translate into actual health benefits, especially for children?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of a dose response relationship, I think this kind of builds on what we were discussing in the last round. So it's important to keep in mind that physical fitness has this genetic component. So when we talk about physical fitness being a product of our physical activity, it's important to keep in mind that some people may respond differently than others. So for example, some people performing the exact same amount of physical activity may have a better response in improving their physical fitness than others. So I think a great place to start in terms of a population recommendation for improving our fitness would be to adhere to the physical activity guidelines. I think there's a good kind of justification for that. But it's important to keep in mind that youth who are already very fit might need more physical activity than the guidelines recommend. Whereas on the flip side, for youth who are not as fit at baseline, they perhaps don't need to fully adhere to the guidelines to see improvements in their fitness. So I think overall there's hope for everyone to find a way to improve their physical fitness levels.
Okay, thank you for that. I think I'd like to ask WHO to respond to that since we described their changes, and perhaps he can just give a quick overview of the changes. I know we're speaking to an audience that knows quite a lot about this topic, but the guidelines did change recently. So perhaps Stephen can just put into context why those definitions changed slightly. And then I'll throw it over to Dr. Starts because I know he has a lot of research and experience translating this to the level of the schools. So let's zoom out to the global definition of fitness and the guidelines, and then we'll zoom right down to the level of the schools. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you. I can't pinpoint exactly why that change was made, but to develop the guidelines, the WHO established a guideline development group of, I think, 20 or 30 leading researchers on physical activity. They used evidence from systematic reviews. I wasn't part of the guideline development group, so I don't know exactly why what those decisions were made, but there's a lot of information on the WHO website about the whole process, the systematic reviews that were included. But yeah, no, I can't really say why specific decisions were made because I don't know.
Okay, we'll go back and do our homework then. Gregor, did you notice that by changing the definitions, even slightly, so the definitions changed to more of an average per week as opposed to getting in 60 minutes per day? It was a little more, not lenient, but let's say flexible to encompass different lifestyles, regions, and a global perspective. So did you notice that in the Slovenian population, that change in the definition perhaps also changed the fitness category and composition of our children here?
Well, I'm not sure whether ordinary people are aware of any new recommendations. I mean, we know what the new recommendations are, but in everyday life, you don't think about that a lot. And of course, I personally have problems with recommendations of physical activity. You know, when somebody says 60 minutes per day, then I say, well, if my child sits for 7-8 hours a day, then to fix his entire physical activity in 60 minutes is, to me, mission impossible. So I think that we are really far from our true nature in this regard. And I think some of the future steps would have to combine activity and inactivity and make the recommendations proportional. So if you sit for that long, you should be active for that long, etc. And of course, the people in public health, people in education, they recognize this, you know, and the problem is when this becomes integrated into legislation, into programs, you know, then, you know, if they say 60 minutes is enough, then that's really hard to get over it, you know, to go beyond it. So yeah, it's good that we have some recommendations, you know, but in the real life, we should think about these things differently and proportionally in regard of our inactivity, because we do live in an inactive life. Adults can sit for 12 hours a day. So this is truly a lot. And when we are talking about physical fitness in our schools, you know, we use it. We've been using it since the beginning, since the 1960s already, and it has worked for us because with this we are able to track the development of children. We can identify children who have problems in the motor development, who have unhealthy lifestyles. So we can influence in a way through physical fitness. And but there's also one more thing that should be mentioned. Already Francesco mentioned it before, you know, there is some gray area of children who don't look obese, who have no excessive weight, but are terribly unfit. So this is this gray area, and we don't recognize these children. If we don't test them physically, we don't recognize them. And we know that these children do exist. And this is truly problematic. These children are going to be unnoticed by the public health systems until they have a serious problem, sometimes maybe in the 20s, in the 30s, or in the 40s. But we already can see also in Slovenia injuries in children that have never existed before, because the bone density is so low. For example, when a volleyball breaks your arm, then
Wow.
there's something wrong, you know, and we didn't have this kind of injuries 15, 20 years ago, but now we do. And the girl whose arm was broken looks fit. I mean, if you look at her, she's thin, she looks sporty, she isn't in truth. So, of course, and when this child comes to medical checkup, you know, the doctor can't say much. I mean, measures the weight and height and says, do you eat well? Do you exercise? Do you do something? Yes, yes, yes. No, this child goes unnoticed until there is a broken arm, you know. So I think that all kind of monitoring systems, so physical fitness, physical activity via gadgets or questionnaires, you know, they should complement each other. And of course, another problem that I might open is the definition of health-related physical fitness per se, because I have a very hard time, especially in the last years, saying what is health-related and what is not. Because to me, explosive power, for example, is also health-related, you know, because this shows the capability of our muscles, you know, and we know that muscles are protective factor in our life, you know. So I would suggest for the future to slowly start abandoning the narrow view of health-related physical fitness and encompass all fitness into health-related. Of course, one of the things will be to step up the research on these other aspects of physical fitness in regard of health, because now we know a lot about endurance and health. You know, we know a lot of I don't know. There's some research done on these components of physical fitness that we call health-related. You know, but on the other hand, you know, we don't have that much research on the other areas, and this is why probably these parts of physical fitness are not included in the definition of the health-related physical fitness.
Interesting. I'll go to Katja now, and then we have a few online questions and a question and comment from Dr. Jurak as well. Katja, because we're dealing with such large amounts of data in what you're working with, do you think that it can be utilized in the way that Dr. STARC is suggesting to have a greater all-encompassing look at the fitness status overall of a population? And do you think it would have the granular detail enough to pick up changes that would manifest many years from now?
A big question.
They're all big. Sorry.
Great. I think there are a lot of over the world small studies which are not recognized at the moment, or just maybe very regional, but they have nice findings, good test items, good measurements, but they don't get recognized because they are not published in big journals or something, because it's not that one researcher who wants to publish. And when they have the ability to publish their data or put it somewhere like on Mori data, for example, just one example, and then we can add these lot of small studies to one big data set and for years on. So we have a really big data base over years, and we can have a look specifically in countries, but also in continents or all over the world somehow, It needs some years, but I think that's possible. And I also want to highlight that physical fitness is not just cardiorespiratory fitness, so strength, also coordination parts or flexibility parts. They're into this whole whole picture of fitness. So it's very important to have this whole picture and to have this data of this whole picture. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I'll pass it over to Dr. Jurak. He has a question and some other comments.
It is question. Thank you for really interesting discussion. But my question is related with more and more evidence that fitness is very associated with cognitive functioning. But when it comes to reports and feedback and criterion reference, we are actually giving just a health risk feedback. Should we consider, friend, this is a question for you, should we consider to also give a feedback of cognitive functioning?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I must say that probably the evidence on the brain health, cognitive health related to fitness is newer, is more recent. So if we, for instance, had a meta-analysis of the cardiovascular risk factors already from previous studies published years ago, we didn't have that much, because much of the evidence with the fitness and cognition and academic performance come over the last 10 years. So I think it's coming, but by the time that we have been working so far, we focus mostly what most of the evidence was available. But I think now is a high time, it's enough evidence accumulated. So actually we should do the same work we did with, let's say, cardiovascular risk factor score. And we had done a ROC analysis to detect the cut points related with a higher or lower cognitive performance and academic performance. So I think there is now enough data and enough evidence to give that a step forward. And then in the future updates or cut points or criterion-based feedback to use this. So I think it's a great comment, great suggestion, and I would do my best from our side to contribute to that together with other researchers, of course.
I forgot to also describe the context of my question. Why? Because actually we know that the best setting is school setting, but we are having challenges introducing such kind of monitoring in school setting. But if we would provide teachers also this kind of feedback, I think we would have better chances. So maybe this should be a really strong effort in next years.
I agree 100%.
So Shonda, we have also a few more questions on Zoom. Maybe I can
take it away.
Yep, just to see. So no, I don't need. So the first one is where we are. So Lukasz, yeah, Lukasz Rubin wrote on the chat that if panelists can also discuss about the future of physical fitness monitoring, not only in school setting or sports setting, but also in comprehensive healthcare systems, like part of pediatric examination. I have to mention that actually we already started this issue in Slovenia, and maybe Gregor can reply on this.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we actually do encourage parents to give access to children's physical fitness data to the school examiners, so the physicians who have these regular checkups. So they are listed, these doctors are listed as trustworthy persons in schools. So parents don't have a lot of work, they just have to look for the school doctor, click, I want this doctor to see my child's data, and the doctor gets invited to log in, become a member, and see the data of this child. And when the child comes to check up, we have very good feedback from the medical doctors saying that this is for the first time I can see a much more complete picture of this child, because previously I only saw height and weight, and now I can see how this child develops through years and how this child develops in comparison to the peers. And I know much more about this child, and I can understand the problems of this child much, much better. So it's already in the process.
This actually, to add, this is happening within my SLOfit app.
Yeah.
So we have users of this app, parents are users, and they can actually grant access to doctors and also coaches, grandparents, and other persons. Okay, maybe to add. Yep.
Yeah, actually, we were discussing this topic just 2 weeks ago because we got a question from one editor from one journal about our feedback reference papers. And they say, but what is the clinical value of this? Okay, you're doing the fitness testing in a school setting. And to the question, I think the school setting is the only setting that is feasible. I don't see how they will do 20 meters and run tests or the tests at the medical care setting because of the lack of facilities, lack of time, lack of even expertise on fitness testing. So I think it is the school where 100% of the population is. Any other after school activity will never reach either 100% of the population. So I think school is the setting. But the question is there, what do you do with the data collected at the school? And that again is Slovenia is leading, and then Finland as well. The data collected in MOVE is connected to the school doctors and nurses. And we were screening around Europe who else was doing that. So Galicia in the north of Spain is doing that as well. And so far, this is the 3 places that we are aware at the moment that the fitness data collected in a systematic way are integrated into healthcare systems. So we believe that that's the way, that's the future. At the moment, it's just a few pioneers, but hopefully in some time, maybe it will be more people doing the same thing.
Can I continue? So
You may.
yeah, so this is maybe future in the healthcare domain, but as we said, we have a lot of space also on the school connecting with cognition. But the next question is closely connected with school-based measurements. So Farid is asking about stigmatization within physical fitness testing. So of course, countries which are performing this for years, we have a lot of experience. Maybe Gregor, you can address this question.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, stigmatization can occur anywhere. So somebody can be stigmatized because he doesn't know how to do math, or he doesn't know how to speak properly the mother tongue or something. And of course, also in physical fitness testing, there can be stigmatizations, but we are working very hard against it. So we are trying to give the right message to the children. So why are you being tested? Not because you compete with your best friend or somebody else. It's so you can follow your own development, so you can see how you develop. And if you're going in the right direction, just continue doing that. If you don't go in the right direction, try to change something. So the first thing is physical literacy, perhaps. So to learn, to teach children how these data should be read, should be interpreted, and what it means. And it's not competition against other children. And I do know, and I must say, this is one of the things that I think that public health systems are to blame for, is stigmatization of obesity, for example. You can see now even the producers of scales are producing scales that have monitors on a wire or wireless. So the person that stands on the scale doesn't even see the weight because it's woo. I don't want to see how heavy I am, So you have to speak frankly with children, with adults, with anybody about these issues. So even if somebody is obese, it doesn't mean you're bad. It means you have a problem that can be improved. So if you speak about it openly, then it can help. Also in Slovenia, some teachers in some schools, they had problems, for example, with obesity and stigmatization because of obesity. But then they said, okay, that's it. From now on, every child will weigh himself or herself every time the child enters the gym. So in the beginning, you step on, you look how heavy you are. And then at the end of the lesson, you step on again, you see how much water you lost during the exercise, just to make weight unstigmatized, becoming like brushing your teeth every morning. So in that way, this is the only way you can beat stigmatization, not by having regulation and hiding it, just talking about it openly and, giving the thing that you think are problematic, a friendly face.
Dr. KLEMM, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just 2 comments on this. First one, I see it the same. What would be another solution if you don't measure at school? Where do you find these children which are stigmatized? They are at home and nobody sees them until they are ill or something. So, and it's really important to speak about it. And we saw in some test items of colleagues that some children with high BMI, they were very good at strength tests or something. So they can also show their strengths and their to the other children, and maybe they can't do some other sports during normal PE lessons. So here they can show what they can do. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from our other 2 panelists online in terms of follow-up with this? Then I'll ask Gregor. I think
we have a lot of questions actually on the Zoom. So actually Laura is discussing with Gregor arguments that we should widen the concept of health-related fitness. She actually expressed opinion that there could be a collinearity between the different fitness variables, and this could be a problem. Can you address this?
This is a real problem. Yeah, collinearity always exists. In fitness testing, you don't have, when you're talking about field tests that we do in this kind of batteries, we don't have clean tests that measure really only one thing. There are sometimes the collinearity is big, but there are solutions to this. We will never have an extremely precise picture, but we will always have a possibility of better assessment, better criteria or something. So, but I would urge the researchers, to look at other components of physical fitness than cardiorespiratory fitness and its relation to health, because in this way, this would widen our perspective on how fit we should be and at what components of physical fitness we should be looking at, because saying that only or that the most important part of physical fitness is cardiorespiratory fitness can have unpredictable effects. And this has been seen in Slovenian children, because for a decade, we've been talking about cardiorespiratory. So everybody in school, they were doing a lot on cardiorespiratory fitness. So the cardiorespiratory fitness improved. So children, they were better and better in this. But on the other hand, they lost speed. So they were becoming slower. They could run longer, or they were slower. And if you're slower, you cannot play the games that you love. You can't play basketball or football or handball effectively if you're slow. It doesn't matter if you can run for 2 hours, So we should really look at all the components, and give them the same weight. This is what our problem was in Slovenia, and not only in schools. This was observed also in sport clubs, because trainers started saying, "Well, children are getting slower and slower. They can run for a long time, but slowly." And this is not good when you have a fast player against you somewhere. Yeah?
we have a follow-up with Dr. Ortega.
Yeah, well, I want to give my opinion on that health-related fitness. When it comes to muscular, sometimes we talk about muscular fitness, that is a bit broader and include muscular strength, maximal strength, and also muscular power. So actually, much of the evidence we have at least produced in our group is part of it with the standing long jump. So that is actually muscular power. So when we have referred to muscular fitness as a health-related component, is a broader term that includes actually different dimensions of the muscle. So that one thing, and also when it comes to speed agility, we actually had the 4 times 10 meter test that is actually a speed agility test. And we have included that in all our studies. And actually, the evidence, I think, at the moment, based on our systematic reviews on predictive validity, it just shows a stronger association for cardiorespiratory fitness than for other components, both when it's related with cardiovascular risk factors and also when it's related to cognitive, academic achievement, and brain outcomes. So it's not that I have anything against the other fitness component. I think they're also important, also from the sport perspective. But I just say that the evidence at the moment is stronger for cardiorespiratory fitness than for other tests. And for example, these very powerful studies of 1 million people followed that I have mentioned, when it looked at these disability pension outcomes or diseases, both for psychiatric diseases and for cardiovascular diseases, the risk prediction of cardiorespiratory fitness versus muscular fitness, there were a couple of tests or upper and lower body, it was like 90% risk reduction versus almost not significant in some of the outcomes when it came to muscular strength. So I do think the health related is one thing, and there is more evidence for one test than others. So I just think it is there. But of course, for instance, flexibility. We haven't seen when we have done our systematic reviews, we just didn't see the evidence, for instance, with low back pain outcomes or other things. So we actually look a lot of different outcomes and didn't see health-related clear evidence. So that's why it's not in the alpha fitness test battery, evidence-based. Somebody says a lot of tests missing, yeah, but this is the only test that they are really related with health more consistently, that they are valid and that they are reliable. And one of the messages I wanted to give from this roundabout, I think is very important. When it comes to fitness monitoring, it would be really great if it would be like kind of core test. Let's say the 2-3 tests that they are kind of hopefully involving most of fitness test batteries. And then each country might have its own additional tests. Like for instance, because if there is a traditional and you are traditional doing this test and you want to make the circular trend track because for sport orientation, because of whatever reason, different countries, we always have different preferences about tests. That's fine. But if we all manage to have 2, 3, 4 tests that they are used in most of fitness test batteries, in most of places across Europe, we'll have a huge win. Because only with that, we can do pure standardization, pure comparison, and pure changes over time. And in that sense, these tests are the 20 meters and run test. It's on my suggestion, is the evidence, it is there for reading. And it's the standing long jump term probably. And then hand grip has a problem. First is that need a machine that costs some money, and many school system or monitoring system are not willing to have things that are expensive. So if I had to select 2 tests, I would go for 20 meters and run test, standing long jump, and then BMI where circumference is possible. But I think if every other monitoring system will have that data, and then anything else additional is welcome, but at least not to miss these 2 important things that can be more comparable across Europe.
Thank you very much. Let's turn it to Dr. Jurak.
Yeah, we have more participants over there, but I would like to add something here. So for sure, we agree that we need more studies on causality to find out the possible also relationship with other component of fitness. And I would like to inform you that Slovenia is the first country in the world we actually established the lifelong fitness monitoring. So we are now offering to all our residents to actually follow their physical fitness through the livelihood. So actually from childhood to adulthood. And actually we use similar fitness tests that across the Europe, but in some years, of course, we will have also data which will connect health outcomes with physical fitness in childhood and adulthood. But now I think maybe it's really worth to give a space to Grant Tompkinson. So Grant, hello, can you switch on your mic? It's really nice that you were able to join us. Grant, as mentioned by Fran before, participated also in this group heavily. with data collected already before with his group, and he was also like a consultant when we created these European curves. And he replied also to Justin Lang comment when actually was discussion among physical activity and physical fitness, but for sure he will have some more comments. Hello.
Hi, Gregor.
Hey, hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, fantastic discussion. I'm really appreciative of the effort that you've taken, you and your team, to put this session together. I think there's so many things to unpack, and I don't want to say too much because I think the panel's doing a great job. Just one question I raised that I think is important. When we track physical fitness, physical activity, when we surveil individuals, we do it with an idea of trying to monitor the progress, the success, the effectiveness of healthy public policy. And historically, we've used things like physical activity, particularly self-reported measures. Justin raised a really important issue. That is, if you complement the existing measures with some more objective fitness measures, and you even talked, Gregor even talked about this on the panel, it may shed some extra light. So consider this situation. We found that cardiorespiratory fitness has declined over the last few decades in youth. But imagine self-reported physical activity hasn't changed over the last few decades, or perhaps has even improved, because children perceive the aerobic activities they do nowadays as relatively harder than in the past because they're less aerobically fit. Is this a win for public health because physical activity levels have stabilized or improved? If you look at physical activity alone, it might suggest that that's the case. If you complement it with an additional measure, a great summative measure of your overall physical activity levels in, say, your cardiorespiratory fitness, it may complement some of the picture, add a little bit more to it, and suggest that maybe this is not a win and we need to do better. So I really like what Fran suggested too, that you need to have a core group, maybe one or two to start with, and then based on your jurisdiction, add some more. And if we can work together and get that core group together, maybe feed into existing tracking systems like the FitBack portal over time as it evolves, I think we're going to be in a far more powerful position in the next decade to really unpack what's been going on in terms of the health of today's generation than we were in the past or even today.
Okay, I will not respond to this. I will leave it to you, but now we have another comment by João.
Thank you, Gregor. Thank you, everyone, for the excellent presentation for the panel. And I would just like to add on this, on the following question from Grant itself, because as we were looking today earlier from Professor Sardinha, the Fit Scholar platform has actually like conceived the whole application for the students, where it's actually able to track the steps and physical activity from the students. And I know that you're involved in the Interlife consortium alongside with Professor Sardinha. And I was wondering if in the near future, even FitBack itself will be able to have these kind of like tools to assess physical activity and complement with physical fitness, and alongside have a little better look for trajectories and see what's happening, and if it will be feasible and if it will be reliable, and just your opinion on the panel itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what the Interlife network is a network focused on devices, consumer grade devices that can be used for assessing physical activity or increasing activity or doing interventions. So yeah, I'm not sure if that would be done within the context of FitBack. Maybe there are other forums that can be done, but I agree that the new gadget, even if they have limitations, problems, they will offer new opportunities in the future. I spent a lot of time working with the accelerometer data and the very raw accelerometer data and a lot of metrics, and now has been like a way back to simplicity. That's something interesting that it was simple measure, then became complex, and now it's getting a lot of emphasis the steps. So it has been over the last 5-6 years, has been 4 or 5 big papers, big meta-analysis showing the association between steps and mortality. So we do have a lot more evidence now on the simple measure of steps per day is actually very informative about health. And we do have now the technology that allows to measure steps in a way objectively that we didn't have before. And when I say new technology, I don't only mean wearables, but even the smartphones. When we wear it on the pocket, there is a very nice paper that compare the steps measure on the pocket, on a shoulder bag, on a backpack, and actually on wearables as well. And the measure is surprisingly consistent because the step is at the acceleration level is like quite clear pattern. So actually show when there is a step in a more robust way than many other metrics using an accelerometry. So actually, I do believe there is a lot of future on the step counting as a measure of objective assessment of ambulatory physical activity. And yeah, there are challenges, but I see that the combination of smartphones with wearables, smart bracelets, smart watches, and all the stuff together will provide a lot of information about population level activity, ambulatory level. So it's a very good question and comment.
I can thank everyone online and here in person. I think I'm aware of time, so we're going to skip ahead to one of the last conversation points that I think is important to bring up and conclude. And in some ways, it's nice to conclude on, a positive. I'm going to be a bit of a downer and ask our panelists to discuss some of the challenges in setting up a fitness surveillance system in their areas. I'd like to open with perhaps Dr. KLEMM, because we know that Germany is a very large country. It is a federal-based country, lots of different regions, high population. And I wanted to ask you and the other panelists, perhaps we'll go to Justin after this, and then with time, some others, or we'll open up the floor. So the question is, how does a project like FitBack help in establishing a fitness monitoring system in your region? And for a country like Germany that has a large population and many things to consider.
I try to be short.
Yeah. It's just small questions today.
In Germany, it's definitely really hard to establish a monitoring system in the whole country. So we started now in our federal state to have a monitoring with the German motor test, with some fitness tests, and we published this data. We have nice designing, and we have other partners, and we publish it for all the people on newspapers and stuff that to let policymakers and the decision makers see what we are doing. And I think that's one important factor which came up today often, I think, that it's not just here in our bubble. I think everyone knows how important it is, but it needs projects like FitBack and other projects that policymakers see what's possible, what's needed. And in Germany, it's really hard to get the support of these decision makers, especially in schools. It's really, for me, I don't see it in the next years that it's done in whole Germany, but we have some federal states and we have some small projects, and I'm looking forward that they exceed. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Lang, can you follow up on that in terms of a Canadian perspective with our provinces, and perhaps describe where you see this topic going in the future?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, in Canada, we are looking at implementing national surveillance for fitness, but it would look very different from what FitBack is implementing. What we would be looking to do is using national survey data. So every 2 years, we collect a representative sample of Canadians. We collect data on roughly 7,000 individuals, and some of those measures include fitness. So we would be able to report at the national level the overall fitness levels of children, youth, adults. But that would be very different from what other countries have done in Europe. And I think it would lack kind of the societal change that you would see if you were to be implementing fitness testing in schools. In Canada, we used to have a nationwide fitness program called the Canada Fitness Award. It started in the pardon me?
I remember it.
Yeah, it launched in the 1970s, and it had millions of schools right across the country participate in it. And it had youth perform 6 tests, and based on their performance, they would award the higher performing children and youth kind of a ribbon or a medal for their achievements. And then if a child or youth produced in the top 5th percentile for all 6 tests, they would get an award of excellence. So this was kind of the highest form of achievement. I think pardon me?
I cried when I didn't get it. I remember it well.
Yeah, I think overall this program was really good at promoting fitness and physical activity in the schools, but ultimately it was canceled in the early 80s because of that sense of stigmatizing individuals who weren't performing well. So for instance, those who performed at the lower end of the class didn't receive an award, and it would be really difficult for us or teachers to expect that one individual to somehow become the top performing individual in the class. So for those who weren't fit, it was kind of, it provided kind of a sense of, I guess, not being able to do well, and it might have driven kids away from physical activity. So I think that I've been kind of thinking about this for quite some time. What would have been kind of a way to change that program to make it more equitable, to have kind of kids and youth, provide them with the ability to achieve regardless of their fitness level? And I think that the answer to that would be to come up with a system to allow kids to compare to themselves. So you would have kind of a baseline measure at the beginning of the school year, and then one kind of at the middle and then at the end, and you'd be able to track their trajectory through the school year to see if they're progressing at their expected rate, or if they're progressing at better than their expected rate. So presumably, if they're able to kind of beat their trajectory, their physical activity levels would have improved, and they would have been putting more effort into improving their fitness. And so in that kind of model, any child, regardless of their fitness at the baseline level, can achieve kind of excellence in their fitness. They can be awarded and identified for their improvements, as opposed to just identifying those at the top end over and over again and discouraging those who will never become the most fit in their class.
That's a very interesting improvement on the original system, I must say. I'm going to turn the ball over one last time to Stephen from WHO and ask him how WHO Europe, what he represents, but also more globally, how they can support countries to set up these systems of their own. Stephen, are you still with us? He might have logged off. Okay, well, the topic.
No, can you hear me? Can you see?
He's here. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So what was the question?
So the question was just how can WHO or WHO Europe support countries when they are enthusiastic to try setting up their own systems of fitness surveillance?
Okay. So I think FitBack already kind of leading the way in supporting countries to establish these surveillance systems, developing the criteria based on the evidence and the tools and the website. So as the WHO role, we share success stories between countries and regions. So we would be supporting dissemination of what FitBack has already accomplished as a project. Just next week, actually, we already have a workshop with a network of European Union focal points to kind of train them on how to implement physical fitness monitoring using the FitBack approach. So we have WHO will also support through our networks. We have the HEPA Europe network, for example, and the conference in Nice in September. And yeah, just advocacy bilaterally through these policy dialogues that we're organizing or supporting countries to implement and to facilitate, having these really good tools and resources that we develop through FitBack based on good evidence will be really useful to support countries to strengthen their surveillance systems as part of monitoring the impact of physical activity policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to wrap it up then, Dr. Ortega, one final thought regarding some of the challenges of setting up a fitness system and how FitBack was able to perhaps address that. And then we'll end with Dr. Starks.
Yeah, I will be really short because as you know, in Spain, we don't have such a monitoring system. So my colleague have much more experience. So actually, I just say, I think FitBack will really help us, for instance, because we can now start to promote to all PE teachers who are interested. There were many before, but they didn't have the tool. So I think that at least from the bottom-up approach, I think people will start to use. Maybe it will be more, they will be more ready when we can give more steps from a bottom. But yeah, I pass to people with more experience.
Thank you. Okay, bottom-up approach is good. Dr. Starts.
Yeah, bottom-up approach is always the best. This is our experience with SLOfit because sometimes people think, you know, okay, you are an ex-socialist country, so everything was directed from the upside down. But in fact, the SLOfit system, the sports educational chart was a bottom-up approach. So it was the University of Ljubljana and the teachers in the schools asking the state to have something, you know, to create a tool that can help teachers plan physical education better, to identify children with problems and to make individual approaches. And we needed 6 years to persuade the politicians to say yes. You know, from the 1982 to 1987, there was a piloting period after which everything was evaluated, and then they gave us a green light. You know, so and our system survived, probably because of this, probably because it was growing from the schools upwards and not in the opposite directions. And of course, this means also that all over the world, the professionals working with children, physical education teachers, they could be the ones, you know, starting this movement and starting to ask the policymakers, you know, to create a tool, to provide a tool, to provide the means to get the tool for evaluating children's development and responding to it properly in schools. You know. So that's the way to go, bottom up.
Okay, I think that's a great message to end on. Is there any short question from an audience member? No, then, oh, one final one here. Javier.
Thank you for the great discussion. It has been so interesting. So I was thinking about all those things you have shared here, and it would be a very good option to share with pediatricians, for example, the physical level of children. But you know, they have a lot of things to check: oral health, body health, and everything. So we can not give a report with several indicators, because it is really complex to have time to attend all the issues they have to check. So I wonder if, as you have created an index for physical fitness in children, if you have tested association with health outcomes or with something, because maybe if we have one measure, or so one indicator, we will provide quickness for pediatricians. And also I was thinking on the global matrix at national level, to have one indicator for that. Thank you.
I will give this to answer to my colleague Gregor, but we have to be aware we are losing some parts of dimension if we have an indicator. Yeah, we have it within the SLOfit. Gregor will describe it. But of course, this is then a generalization of all results.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, this is a good point. Being rational, you know, not having too much to look at, and see the important thing fast. This is very important for this kind of checkups, and it will be great to have one single indicator that could do that. I mean, we are trying with our data. We are aggregating the physical fitness index. So we aggregate all the components of physical fitness and then give one number, so where the child is. And then we advise, for example, that if this physical fitness is very low, that you should then check the individual components and see which component is the one that is really pulling things down, and focus on that, you know. So but yeah, I think this would probably be the best solution, to have one single indicator that then enables also to look in more details if you need to, if there's a need to do it. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'd like you to join me in thanking the panelists for a really interesting and diverse conversation. And I'll close the roundtable discussion now. Thank you.
Standing applause. So now is the time actually to finish our pretty gathering. Can you please go to presentation, because I have one more slide to show. So I hope this is really the beginning of FitBack movement, and that we will see you in some frequent period, not maybe annually, but maybe in 2 years. I'm asking you to scan this QR code and give us a fair feedback on the event. We would really appreciate to be better next time. I'm really satisfied with all the discussion as presentations, and I truly believe that feedback will have some impact on European society, especially if we will all put effort so enthusiastically that actually was today discussion. One more thing, I would really like to acknowledge and thanks all my colleagues who make these events come true. So Tjasa, thank you for organizing all the crew, and of course all the SLOfit crew here. Thank you. Thank you, Shonda, for all the backup and also leading. And of course, thank you to IT staff who put a lot of support behind the scene. So thanks that everything went very smoothly, and we promise that we will also publish this recording on FitBack website. So over there will be also presentations available for all participants or for people which haven't time to participate today's online or in person. Thank you, and see you maybe later on in the old city of Ljubljana. If not, have a good travel back to home. Bye. Can I ask you to go here on the stage for one photo, please? All of us.